So Denmark, what were you going to say?
Well, I have the feeling that you sound really upset about the medical system, that they can't help you, but that the reason they say you can't, it makes you feel they don't care.
Yeah, it's not that they can't, it's that they won't.
They won't? Oh, okay, so now I get it. I see. What do you think they can do that you would love to have to happen? What could someone do that would help?
Take care of this fucking paperwork.
Oh,
I cannot deal with the stack of mail.
yeah.
Most of it just advertisements that I don't need.
Yeah.
But I have to sift through it all, and I'm not doing it anymore. I know what's important, and for the most part, I can deal with it without dealing with mail.
Yeah. I can see why you would like some system that doesn't bug you with insurance type stuff.
Well, and when I go in and say, please help me, you say, oh, well, we can send you to someone who can help you. They can't. Like I said, they handed me a stack of paperwork, and there were like 3 or 4 different people I was supposed to call. I really only wanted one. That's the person to help me deal with all this shit. And that's called a case manager, according to them. Now, they know that I'm on Medicare, and they know that I have a history, and they know certain things, but they don't really pay attention to any of that. They go, well, what you need is a case manager. You need to go here and call this number. So I call that number, and they go, yeah, you don't qualify for a case manager. And it's like, well, my doctor says I do. It's like, oh, well, you're just on Medicare. You need Medi-Cal, and you need this, and you need that. I'm like, well, why did they tell me to call you if I don't qualify for your program? Because they don't know and they don't care. And I don't know how many numbers I really tried. It was probably only the one. But the first time they said, no, we don't do that here. I'm like, well, is this the number for this address? And it's like, no, you have old information. I can get you the phone number for that address. And I called them, and they couldn't help me either. So
systems that have, I could see why you would like to have a different medical system. It was really interesting. I was reading this article that was discussing this idea of a California One Health plan for California thing, and the idea was that you would go to whoever you wanted to go to. You didn't have to go to one to get referred to this, and this only works for... I have that problem with arthritis. I mean, I know what practitioners help the most, but it's a convoluted thing. And they were talking about the fact that you would just pick who you want to and go to them. If it was all one system. You know, if all the doctors worked for the same system. And you could pick the person who can do...
But they don't all work for the same system.
I mean, there was an idea to have a system like that. That's what I was reading this article about a system we could have in California. Of course, I don't live in California, but yeah. Anyway.
Well, it's the profit motive. They don't give a shit about you unless they can profit from you.
The idea that medical stuff is a profit-making...
It's
not, I have the impression a lot of medical people aren't making a hell of a lot of money. Just a few are. And, of course, the insurance companies are making a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, they're the ones making the money.
Yeah.
Well, they've also got for-profit prisons now, and that is just absurdly sickening.
I was so upset to hear that they hadn't gone through with that whole thing about profit.
So before they throw me in jail for being too sick, I need to get the fuck out.
It's such a long haul to get that whole thing working someday.
Well,
Yeah.
when I was looking up all the wonderful things about Denmark, I
Yeah.
figured, well, let's find out what the worst things people have to say about it. And the one at the top of the list said, well, it's way too expensive. And he's right, they're expensive.
So they have pay a high tax rate. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's the high taxes and then also the high prices. And he said, $5 will only get you 1 or 2 beers at 7-Eleven. I'm like, well, that sounds pretty comparable to here. They said, well, but you can only get this, that, and the other for $5. And it's like, yeah, it'd probably be $4.50 here. So, I'm not looking at a huge increase.
Yeah.
And he was a conservative, apparently. He thinks that everyone should live in Sweden and work in Denmark to take advantage of the different tax systems.
Huh.
And he was complaining about paying whatever it is, 54% in taxes, whatever he said.
Uh-huh.
He said that means over half the time I'm working for free. And that's not true. Over half the time he is working for his fellow countrymen. That's how I see it.
Yeah, who do you think built the roads? Who do you think?
Yeah,
It's like,
just these people.
well, the other thing is that people are used to the taxes we've been paying since Ronald Reagan, because before that, anybody who made what a doctor makes, what a business owner makes, was paying 50% or more in taxes. We had this really high taxes in the 60s and 70s, and I don't think people remember that.
Well, at one point it was like 91%.
If you made over a certain amount of money, yeah, which was quite high, but we all know a few people who are making that kind of money.
I know, and the conservatives complain about, oh, well, I'm not paying 55 cents on every dollar I make. It's like, you're right, you're not. That's only for over 250 grand are you paying that much, or whatever the
Yeah, and
number
I think
is.
a lot of people don't realize how marginal tax rates work. It doesn't mean if you're in the 50% bracket doesn't mean you pay 50. It means on the
Yeah.
amount over a certain amount that you paid that. So.
Everything below that is at a lower tax.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, there's some stories that are quite inaccurate.
But I've been falling in love with Denmark and its people. Even the things that they say people complain about, I'm like, yeah, so what?
Yeah, I'd like to have only that to complain about.
Yeah, if that was the worst thing I had to say about a country, I'd be pretty happy. So the negatives I hear about it don't distract me at all. They created Legos in Denmark, so that's cool. The TV show I watched from Denmark, which was English subtitled.
Yeah.
It was called Rita, and she works at this school. I don't know how upscale it is, but it had people of all types, poor and rich and educated and not, and they dealt with a lot of really mature topics. And she herself was kind of a floozy. She saw a man she wanted, she was nailing him that night. And it's like, it was a very open society. She was frowned upon for doing things like that, but not by the men she was sleeping with, that's for sure. But she had real meaning and intent when she was caring for her students. And at one point, one of the people at the school, in the staff, the counselor or something, asked her, so why did you become a teacher? And she had to think about it. She couldn't answer at first. But that was the episode her mother came to visit. And she never got along with her mother. And her mother was, being whatever kind of mother that she didn't like. And she said, I know why I became a teacher now. And they said, really, why? She said, to protect the children from their parents. And and that was so wonderful. She ended up taking the special students, the ones that were always arguing with the teachers. One was shitting in the closets. I mean, really aberrant behavior. But they live in the school district, so they got to deal with them. And she said, you know, let's gather up these guys and put them in this room, and this is their room. Whatever they want to do in that room, they get to do. And that's like their freedom room, whatever, I forget what they called it. But it was amazing. And one of the kids, he had some kind of destructive, weird personality thing, and he just demolished the room. He just had a freak attack and just demolished the room. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, we could have planned for that. We knew we had this problem. So they go back to the people who donated all the money for this room, and they refurbish the room identical with all the computers and stuff. She walks in, and not just the one student, but all of the students are picking everything up and smashing it on the ground. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, I did all this for you, and you guys screwed me. And they said, you said we could do anything we want in here. And she just threw up her hands and quit, right? Well, later she comes back, and they've completely remodeled the room with whatever they could find. You know, they said, well, you said we could do anything we want. We got rid of all that crap and put in shit we like. You know, comfortable couches and television set, whatever it was. They mellowed out, and they could behave the way they felt was normal. And she's like, oh, they do get it. You know, and it was just so amazing. And they covered student politics in the third season. There's only like 5 or 6 episodes to a season. There were only 3 seasons. The third season, they have a student election. And one of the students, his parent is a, you know, representative or senator, whatever they have there in Denmark, is a politician. So he's actually been involved in running campaigns, and he's like, oh, I know how to do this. I can manipulate the system, no problem. So he goes in while Rita's counting up all the votes, and she finishes up, and he's like, oh, well, you've got 104, and they've got 100. So you win by 4 points. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought. And she goes, 1, 2, counts out 5, and rips him in half. He's like, you can't do that. This is a democracy. She said, this is a school. The teachers rule here. You know, because it is not a democracy, is what she was saying. And the kid that ended up winning was one of the special students. He actually had a poster, and they're very comfortable with swearing there. The poster said, vote for me if you also don't give 2 fucks. And that was just really refreshing to me. I was fascinated by it all. But some people, they were those prudish people. Some of them were the parents of those weird students. Like, oh no, you should be teaching these books. Here, let me donate these books to you. Like, no, we're the teachers. We're going to teach everybody what, you know, the course curriculum. We can't, you know, specialize around your student. But Rita found her, you know, an alternate path with the special, you know, freedom room or whatever it was. And it was just so good to see this on television. You know, they were decent actors. It wasn't anything over the top. And they got across a really good storyline. And you do not see that on American television.
That's all right.
Not at all. Nothing meaningful is on American TV. It's all buy this and work harder so you can give us your money. You know, it's just, no. You know, and some of the students, even the really discordant students, the ones like, hey, you should not be teaching me this. This is stupid. I'm not learning this because I'm not an idiot. They had some special guy in the class. He's like, oh, this is a vision board. And he just had some construction paper. We want you to cut and paste your ideas and this, that. And she's like, no, this is retarded. You know, this is not going to benefit me. And Rita was sitting there, it's like, go ahead, say your piece, tell them what you think. And she did, and Rita ended up getting up and said, all right, you, whoever, the instructor was doing this vision board, is like, she's right, you need to leave. And she supported the discordant student. And it's just, yeah, I like this. There's a vlogger, Kelly Louise Killjoy. She speaks English very fluently. She misses a few words every now and then, but no different than any American. Frankly, she probably speaks better than most Americans. And that was one of the things I found when I was first looking. They said, don't worry if you can't speak any other language, they all speak English probably better than you do. And I've encountered that in college. There was a student from Taiwan. He used the word antic correctly in a sentence. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone in America use that word. And there are so many other times where someone completely foreign to the language says something that you just don't hear Americans speak. And so I understand that, and I've totally fallen in love with the culture and the language. First, they don't speak the entire word. Most words, they don't speak the entire word. Like Copenhagen is Kopag. The en, the suffix after the word, the en, means the. So Copen is the cope. There's no reason for Danish people to repeat the word the every single frickin' time. So they just delete it. They edit it out as they speak. They say Kopag. And they say it quickly. They can smash an entire sentence into one word. And
must be hard to understand, huh?
And I can actually relate to this because in my journals, with the medication, I can get pretty elucidated, I guess was the right word. I just seem to be able to express myself amazingly, whether that's my perception of someone else's or not.
In writing, it helps you get out what you think.
And sometimes I do truncate my words, especially when I'm cussing. I go fucking hell instead of fucking hell.
Right.
Fugnell. Maybe sometimes an E after that if I feel fancy. But fucking hell. And this is the way they speak. I've called how I write as Stoner Hero. That's the language I'm writing. I'm writing in Stoner Hero. And Denmark is a country that speaks Stoner Hero. Once I get some of the root words down, I can go, okay, now I think I know what they're trying to say. And a lot of it is mixes of German and French and English. Frequently, it's the same word, they just pronounce it a little differently. They don't say God damn it, they say for hell. And the literal word is for helva, or something like that. And it's like, well, they're just saying for hell, and they're pronouncing hell, helva, or whatever the word is, fella, or something. And you don't really hear it if you're just listening, but if you're reading it and then hearing it at the same time, you can kind of get it.
Yeah, that helps.
And in watching that show, Rita, one of the other teachers was talking with her mate, another teacher at the school, and I heard her say Dummkopf, which is German meaning dumb head. And what it wrote down below was jerk. You jerk. And she called him Dummkopf. I'm like, okay, so I've seen this before. In college, my friend taught me a bunch of Chinese phrases. And we could say, a couple of Chinese phrases to each other in class. But of course, the funnest stuff is learning the cuss words.
Yeah,
So-
my father learned that probably. He had German parents.
Yeah.
He used that word. Don't
Well,
cough.
we were watching, I think it was called Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. And when he started off in China, they didn't like him at all. Apparently one of his bosses just started yelling at him, and what the English subtext below said, you know, get out of this town, you'll never work here again, you're through. That isn't at all what he said. I wouldn't have known what he said if he said that. But what I recognized him saying was Diu Le Lomo, which means fuck your mother. And Po Kai, which is fall in the street. It's basically play in the traffic, you know, get run over. They have amazing insults. My favorite is Dang Lega Phi. And that is something along the lines of plugging your lungs. And no one really explained that to me, but what I picture it as is that you are too stupid to breathe. You should plug your lungs and suffocate. Kind of like the Po Kai, which literally means street fall, but I interpret it as go out and play in traffic. So I just really like that. And in the videos that the one gal was doing, she apparently hates doing translation videos. She just, you know, oh, tell me what this is in Danish. And it's like, no, everybody does that. But apparently her weakness is cuss words. So she ran through a list of, you know, what they meant. And there was another one where she had Danish expressions. And there's a whole bunch of them having to do with the eyes. All these different expressions were around the eyes, and they were all different expressions. The one I remember was eyes on the pole, and that means you're curious. And I can kind of see that. You're kind of looking around, hey, what's that over there? It's like you're peeking over the pole, I guess. So I can picture attaching this camera to my walking stick and calling it my eyes on the pole.
Yeah. Huh. So I guess what I'm wondering is, do you have negative feelings about most things you hear, or mostly feel inspired by things that you think about and hear?
In general, or
Yeah.
hear about Denmark? Or...
No, just in general. Because when you start talking, it sounds as if, you know, you have this complaint and that complaint and that complaint, and yet the feeling I get from you is that you're also inspired by things. So do you feel mostly negative about, what are your natural thoughts? Negative or?
Okay, now thoughts and feelings to me are completely different.
That's right, I used the word feelings wrong.
Well, you used feelings before and then you just said thoughts.
Right.
Now, after my experience with baby girl Andrea here,
Yeah.
I started to explore some feelings.
Uh-huh.
And kind of regrow a heart, as it were, because I
Yeah.
ripped it out a long time ago. I had no use for it. I still find a lot of it just repulsive. You know, it's just, why are you weeping over what you're weeping about? You know, it's just, don't cry over spilt milk. This is pointless. Or maybe someone's really excited, but they haven't said anything. They go, believe me, let me tell you one thing. This is amazing. It's like, well, you just told me 3 sentences and you didn't communicate anything to me. You haven't gotten to the point. I feel no need to listen to you any further. That's my attitude sometimes. And these are at politics and philosophy meetups. You know, there's people who are supposed to be free thinkers. They'll sit there and repeat all these superfluous verbiage is what it is.
You didn't catch what it was about.
Well, no, there isn't anything about it. They're just saying, listen to me, I have something important to say, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm going to tell you all these platitudes instead. And to me, that means they've been listening to too many politicians or too many talk radio shows, that just ramble on without ever fucking saying anything. And it just irritates the shit out of me. That's as close as I have to feelings about people talking. Is that what you were asking about?
Yes, the negative reaction. The negative. And yet you hear people and you seem to listen to give them space. Or then you start talking and it's like, oh, well, this complaint, that complaint, about people, so I'm confused. That's all.
All right, share with me this confusion. From what it sounds like to me, and again, I'm summarizing, correct me where I'm wrong, is that it sounds like I'm really fucking angry, but I seem to manage to pull off a positive attitude. Is that remotely close to what you're saying?
Yeah, it's close. Yeah, it's close. Yeah.
It sounds like there's more to it, but I'm going to just try to go with that.
Yeah, pretty much. Good.
Okay. So, what about, can you rattle off an example of where I start speaking and you think, oh, this is going to be negative, and then I turn around and go, wow, that was really positive?
No. I don't think that exists. Is that when you talk about your experiences, there's a lot of really negative ones.
Yes.
Right. And reactions. But you don't seem reactive when you're encouraging other people to talk. That you're accepting their feelings and their attitudes. And I'm talking about not the content. I'm talking about the gist of what they're saying.
Maybe their perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't have any idea who anyone else is. I barely know who I am. I'm not a brain tumor survivor. I just happen to fall in that category.
Yeah.
So is that something along the lines of twisting a negative into a positive?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to get a sense of it, that's all.
There was a really good interview with a woman who has dealt with hospice and alcoholism and went through AA and was really disappointed because it seemed all about God, and she was not about God.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen her speak twice down at Sunday Assembly. After the first time I interviewed her, and being familiar, she's a social worker, so she deals with all sorts of other problems, and she also deals with hospice, so people dying.
Mm-hmm.
In Death Cafe, they were familiar with that. She would fit in really well there. She asked me if I ever use my disability, incapacity, brain tumor, pain, I forget the word she said, but she asked me if I use it. I'm like, at first I was a little disgusted, like, I'm certainly not faking it, but I don't think that's what she was getting at.
Yeah. What part of it was she?
The positive spin I tried to put on it was more of using it as a badge of, you know the book, The Red Badge of Courage?
Yeah.
I never read it, but I got the idea that the battle wounds is what he's talking about. And these are my battle scars that I'm saying, hey, I really didn't think I'd pull through this, but I did, and I'm here to talk to you about it. Have a seat. So in a sense, I'm using it as a bridge to open up these conversations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not polite banter, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about serious, life-threatening, painful events.
Yeah,
Some of them still continuing.
yeah.
I don't know how you survive it, but if you were to survive it, how would you go about doing it? So the internet talk show I want to do is how a hero does it,
Ah.
which ends up spelling out "ha, die," which is not a very heroic thing to say. But anyways,
How a hero does it. So that's really interesting. So what hero, when we see or hear a story and there's really a hero, they are going through a lot of pain and they assume there's a good ending after it. There's a reason to do so. And to keep going and to play this part. Yeah, so how do all of us do that all the time? Because I think we do. I think all of us in a way do that. But if the stakes were that high, we would shy away. That's as what the stories we see and hear are. We would shy away from it. But there are challenges that none of us can do anything about. We just get them. We don't choose them. And we don't sign up for it. But they happen and therefore there you are. So in a sense I like you're asking about and making the assumption that there's some heroics in people's lives.
there's some what?
Heroics in people's lives.
Yes.
There's some, what should we call them, growth challenges. Not everybody is living with pain to a great degree. However, I am always surprised, Thomas, to find out from people that you don't have any idea what they actually are living with. And you would just not necessarily know it.
I think I covered this with John, maybe even on camera, about panic and stressing out. My friend Julie, who has endometriosis, I met online 9-10 years ago. We became best buds. We were playing this game and she was talking about her horrible diseases and miscarriages and other cancers that she's got that they're going to name after her after she dies. You know, and I didn't interrupt her because I knew what she was going through. And after she had quieted down, you know, we're typing this, you know, communicating through text, through this game. And I decided, okay, it sounds like she's calmed down. I said, look, I don't want to start a pissing contest, but I happen to be a brain tumor survivor. And she's like, wow. And we just really connected after that. You know.
Connected because of the degree of pain challenges.
Yeah, and dealing with doctors and people and family and other shit in our history that doesn't have anything to do with our medical history. It's just shit in our life.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, being able to connect with her, I was able to hold her up as my hero. And after I told her that, she said the same thing about me. So she's my biggest hero and I'm her biggest fan, and she says the same about me. And I really just had to stick with the hero thing. And I've written some of this on my Facebook and from my journal, that while never having been a believer in any religion, I can see why people might look up to Jesus as a hero, because he suffered. and he suffered more than someone else. He suffered more than the average person should ever suffer. Now, Julie and I could probably argue that she and I have suffered probably even more.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it's like to be crucified, but I have literally worn a crown of thorns. The halo.
Oh yeah, those things sound awful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I only had mine on for a couple hours. I've met people that have been wearing them for a week because they, fractured their neck or something.
Right.
But to hold someone up as a hero and say, hey, if they can do it, maybe I can. Of course, with Jesus, it doesn't help since he's the Son of God. He's got, all these magical powers, and we don't have that.
It gets a little convoluted there, doesn't it?
Yeah. There was something else, about stress.
Yeah, what was this about panic? I wasn't following that.
Yeah, because I lost track. I got sidetracked by the end of people, women. They have talked about, hey, I am stressed way the fuck out. I got surgery in a few hours, and this is just bullshit. I'm like, yeah, I know. I told them, hey, listen, I didn't actually plan on it, but what I ended up doing is not panicking at all until they started wheeling me into the operating room. That's the time to panic. Because, before that, I don't even know if I'm really going in there. Because there's the insurance paperwork and this, that, and the other. Maybe my blood type, they don't have enough of it in stock. Whatever excuse. I'm thinking, I don't need to be worried about it until it's actually going to happen. Then I freak way the fuck out, and then they knock me out. Okay? So what I tell them is, try to realize that the time you spend panicking and worrying, you could have spent doing something else. Because even if the worst happens and you die on that table, you will have wasted that much time of your remaining life stressed the fuck out. So if you can find a better way of thinking or feeling or remembering things, do that instead. There's you know how we bottle our anger? Have I told you about the joy jar?
No, what?
I will tell this story as many times as I need to. I was part of a support group. I finally said, okay, if I'm depressed, let's get some help. So I was in this group therapy session, and a few of us had exchanged numbers for support. So this young gal calls me up in just a horrid panic, just can barely speak. I'm like, okay, try to calm down, tell me what's going on. She's like, I just got home from a date. I'm like, oh, please tell me it was okay, you're safe. She's like, no, it went perfectly. I said, well, why are you so panicked about it? And she goes, I don't know how to feel good.
Oh, God. Right, I know.
And